we're here today with Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead with Jake Tapper, as well as chief Washington correspondent. And we've upgraded our red couch to a prime seat in The Lead's newsroom here in Washington, D.C. Thanks for having us, Jake.
I can barely hear you because of all the talking and the news gathering going on behind me. It's crazy.
So you've covered Washington for a long time, first at City Paper, then Salon, ABC News, and now CNN.
Yes.
What specifically does it take to be a successful journalist here?
A lot of hard work, a lot of realizing that you're being not told the whole story all the time, and a need to talk to as many people as possible so you can get the full story. Mm-hmm. But it's really just, I mean, Washington is a place where you can succeed as a reporter if you just work hard and go to the press conferences. There have been a lot of times in my life where I'd go to a press conference and nobody would be there, and I'd get a story just because I showed up.
And of course, you're close to the White House as well,
Yes.
and you've interviewed the president several times. What's that like? How do you prepare for that?
Oh, it's nerve-wracking because you get this opportunity and you don't want to blow it. There's no shortage of questions you want to ask, and there's no shortage of people who are telling you what you should be asking. At the end of the day, though, you just have to go with your instincts about what you think the viewers care the most about, what are the issues they want to hear addressed at that moment. These interviews with people like President Obama, who does a lot of interviews, they tend to be of the moment. What's going on that day, what's going on that week. Sometimes it's important to take a step back and not only think about what's in today's paper, but also just general issues such as Afghanistan or terrorism in general or joblessness, things that are perennial issues, not just on that day.
Mm-hmm. Our president is very tech savvy, and so are you. You're very active on Twitter. And
I'm actually active on Twitter. I can't say that President Obama is actually typing any of those things himself.
You recently
I will say that about my skills over his.
Do you think he's tweeting with Sir Mix-a-Lot?
Oh, you saw my exchange with Sir Mix-a-Lot. Well, first of all, it was an honor to anytime I can communicate with nobility, like Sir Mix-a-Lot, who I assume is an actual knight. I can only because he is a sir. It's an honor. It was funny. Somebody just randomly, I engage with viewers all the time, and somebody just asked me what I was listening to that day, and I was listening to. I have a 4-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter, so I was listening to Minions from Despicable Me singing YMCA, basically on a continuous loop in my house. But he suggested that I do a segment, because we do a pop culture lead every day. That I do a segment on what I learned from 90s rappers. And I just mentioned that I learned from Sir Mix-a-Lot that it's important not to lie.
Yeah.
And I just happened to include his handle. And from there, a lifelong friendship was birthed.
So how has technology impacted sort of your day-to-day?
Well, constantly. I get information from Twitter and email. I read all the newspapers on my iPad. It's changed it completely. I mean, when I started in journalism in the late 90s, it wasn't like that at all. Everything was on print. There was no way to directly have an exchange with somebody who was a lawmaker or someone of import that you want to talk to, other than calling them or trying to email them, and you probably wouldn't get through. But these days you can go directly to a senator on Twitter, and if they're willing to engage, you can actually have a conversation.
And what happens when you see that breaking news tweet? What are the first things that you do to kind of mobilize quickly?
We have to confirm this for ourselves. If it's not from CNN, although it's often from CNN, but if it isn't, we have to. The first time I heard about the Boston Marathon bombing was somebody at the finish line had tweeted a picture of this explosion. Mm-hmm. I remember it was just over an hour before our show, and I said something just happened at the Boston Marathon. Unless, of course, it was a prank, we don't know because it's just a tweet. But that's often where you first hear about things. You have to, double check them, triple check them for yourselves before you report them. But it's often where you find out what's actually going on from citizen journalists.
At Flipboard, we believe that great content and access to it can really move the world forward. When you think about the history of our nation or the world, is there a piece of content that stands out to you as for its ability to transform us towards positive change?
Wow, that's a big question. There's a book written a long time ago called There Are No Children Here about the projects, Cabrini Green in Chicago. I mean, I think any time a journalist walks into a world that most of the country is not paying attention to, whether it's a remote outpost in Afghanistan or housing projects in the inner city, or the slums of India. I'm thinking of Kate Boo's recent book. It can open eyes, and by opening eyes, it can move hearts and move people to do things. Mm-hmm. But in this saturated media market, it's difficult to do that as much as it's more difficult to do that now than it used to be, I think.
Mm-hmm. You just passed your 1-year anniversary at CNN. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you have one of the top-rated shows here. So what are some of the highlights for you?
Oh, well, I mean, just working with these people here is the highlight, just because they're so, they have so many ideas and so much energy, and there's so much they wanted to do. We're trying to, like, every day fight for the best show we can do. Mm-hmm. I mean, there have been highlights like journalistic highlights, like when we covered Oklahoma, or the tornado in Oklahoma, or the Boston Marathon bombing was journalistically a highlight, not because it was obviously horrible news, but it was journalistically a story that was a challenge and intense and satisfying to cover in some ways. But really, it's just the day-to-day with these people, and trying to figure out what works the best, and benefiting from how smart they are and their creativity.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mia. It was a pleasure.
So if you guys want to follow the Lead magazine on Flipboard, just search for The Lead and you'll find it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.